As a model, your job is to sell products. But the number one rule is never overshadow the product.
Fashion Week dazzles the world with flashing cameras, designer runways, and star-studded front rows. In cities like New York, Paris, Milan, and London, luxury brands unveil their masterpieces, while models and celebrities strike choreographed poses in million-dollar outfits. But behind the glamour lies something far more sinister.
There were, drastic means that the girls were using to stay catwalk size. Some of the girls had resorted to eating tissues, which I'd never heard of.
This isn't just fashion's biggest moment. It's a performance.
When he made this corset, I think the waist was like 19 inches, and I could not breathe. I remember when I walked in, everybody was just like, what the f? Because my waist looks so tiny.
A performance of power, control, and quiet cruelty.
People think that modeling is just about looking beautiful or having a certain look that people like, but that's not the reality of things.
Nothing is accidental. Every model is selected, every outfit engineered, every step designed for virality under pressure most people can't begin to imagine. It looks like a celebration, but in reality, Fashion Week is a pressure cooker, where beauty is manufactured, bodies are policed, and worth is measured by how much you can endure.
Photographers would come up to me and they'd slap my stomach and slap it tighter, tighter.
The rules are unspoken but strict. Maintain the look, don't complain, don't crack, and above all, don't question the cost. Because Fashion Week doesn't just reward perfection, it punishes anything less.
I remember walking into the room full of people, and the designer gave me this bodysuit to put on, and she took one look at my body and kind of snickered and laughed, said, "That's not gonna work."
And sometimes the cost isn't just exhaustion, it's collapse, it's invisibility, it's death. This is where the illusion starts to crack, and what lies beneath is far darker than it appears.
So the longest I managed to go without eating was 3 days, and I had to quit because I kept passing out. And I was annoyed with myself because I was determined to make it to 5 days, but I couldn't. I couldn't function, I couldn't move, and it was incredibly frustrating. I remember being so angry with myself and feeling as though I'd failed somehow in not being able to survive on just water for that long.
This isn't a story about one girl. It's about an industry where image is everything and bodies are disposable.
You give me a little bite, I give you a little bite. But not too big, no, that's too big, the half of that.
Gigi's in charge of her own diet, but to be on your best weight, you gotta make the right choices.
Fashion Week doesn't run on fabric, it runs on fear. The kind that starts months before the lights hit the runway.
Please take your position on the lineup. We're gonna do a little train. A very short angle. Remember to walk in the very middle of the runway.
For models, stylists, makeup artists, and even designers, the pressure isn't just about putting on a good show, it's about being perfect. Flawless skin, flawless walk, flawless behavior. Because one wrong step can mean exile. One blemish, one missed cue, one poorly received look, and you're out. And the expectations aren't just professional, they're personal.
Now in today's day and age, there's no time off from being a model. You're a model 24/7. People see you 24/7. People expect you to be perfect 24/7.
A body that fits a sample size. A face that stays the same, no matter the stress. A personality that's likable, quiet, and compliant. In 2020, model Adwoa Aboa opened up about her mental health collapse after years of internalizing fashion's expectations. She said she felt like she was performing an identity that wasn't hers.
I just felt like I was getting more and more tired. But I've got to keep up the pretense. I've got to keep it together. Did not know how to share with someone the fact that I felt really, really depressed.
And she's not alone. Behind every runway shot is a backstory of sleep deprivation, extreme restriction, and emotional numbness. Mental health is rarely part of the conversation, until a tragedy makes it unavoidable. Because in Fashion Week, everyone's replaceable. And nothing kills a career faster than speaking up. The illusion is maintained with silence, but inside that silence, people are hurting. And no one wants to hear that, not during Fashion Week. She became famous for her beauty, but what she revealed later was far less glamorous. Emily Ratajkowski's face has been on billboards, in magazines, and splashed across runways during Fashion Week. To the public, she was the definition of empowerment. But behind the camera, she was losing control. In her viral essay collection, My Body, Emily detailed how the fashion industry profited from her image while slowly taking ownership of it.
The power that was granted to me because of male desire left me indebted to the men who had granted me that power in the first place.
She described moments of being photographed without consent, of being styled, touched, and displayed, not as a person, but as a product. Like many models, she was chosen for her look, a look that wasn't hers to define. Everything was dictated: the angles, the lighting, the clothes, the expression. Her body was praised in public and scrutinized in private. Emily's story isn't unique. It's just one of the few that made it into print. Other models have echoed her words, often anonymously, warning that Fashion Week turns bodies into billboards and identities into branding tools. It's always about the brand behind the dress and how well you, as a model, serve its image. Even success comes with a cost. The more you're seen, the more you're owned. And once that ownership takes hold, your body and your voice, the boundaries become negotiable. Emily Ratajkowski may be famous enough to reclaim her narrative now, but for most models, there's no space to speak, no time to process, and no power to fight back. Here, your value is tied to your silence. And if you don't play along, there's always someone else who will. They don't tell you what it really takes to stay runway ready, because if they did, the illusion would collapse. Behind the scenes of Fashion Week, quiet rituals shape how models eat, live, and move. Breakfast is skipped. Sparkling water replaces meals. Some models speak of subsisting on a fruit and caffeine.
When I was in the modeling industry, and we would be very strictly briefed. If someone asks you what you ate for breakfast, none of us ate breakfast. We're not going to eat breakfast and then go take photos. But you had to say you had a healthy breakfast. And if someone says, what do you eat? You can't say, I eat a very strict diet. You say, oh no, I love pizza.
Because sometimes appearing in demand means ignoring your own body's signals. The pressure doesn't come from one place. It comes from everywhere.
Adolescent girls have a sort of a prepubescent physique that is favored by designers. The fashion industry seems to have this obsession with extreme youth.
This is the dark underbelly of Fashion Week's obsession with youth. Child models thrust into an adult world long before they're ready. In theory, there are protections in place. In practice, they're ignored. Agencies sign minors without parental presence. Designers book girls barely in their teens. And once show season begins, it's a blur of castings, fittings, and runway appearances, often without chaperones or regulated working hours. There are stories of girls being pressured into inappropriate photo shoots, told to pose nude, told to lose weight, told to flirt with older executives, all before they've even finished school. These aren't prodigies, they're kids in couture. And no runway moment is worth their safety. Fashion Week sells a fantasy, but maintaining it often means sidelining health in favor of image. Not in dramatic headlines, but in quiet moments, behind closed dressing rooms. And as long as the cameras flash, few ever ask how the look was achieved. High cheekbones, symmetrical noses, refined jawlines. These aren't just coincidences. They're industry standards shaped by decades of narrow ideals and quietly reinforced through castings and campaigns. Fashion Week claims to celebrate originality, but behind the curtain, the faces start to look the same. Some models are told directly, "You're almost there. Just a small tweak and you'll fit the brief." Many get the message. And some, especially early in their careers, seek out subtle enhancements. Quiet appointments, no social posts. Because in fashion, beauty is supposed to look effortless even when it's been altered.
With modeling, they don't mind you being fake, but you have to pretend that you got there. You have to basically convince the people that it's natural.
In the days leading up to Fashion Week, models are often urged to prep their skin for camera readiness. That might mean multi-step treatments, restrictive skincare routines, or avoiding anything that could cause inflammation, including stress, which is unavoidable. Some spend hundreds on facials or undergo last-minute procedures to smooth out imperfections. And when things can't be concealed, there's always retouching, Photographers edit relentlessly. Brands retouch to the point of unreality. The final image, the one seen by millions, is rarely human. The audience clapped. Phones flashed. And on the runway, models walked in outfits that looked like torn bin liners, stretched latex, and smeared mascara. It was London Fashion Week, and this was supposed to be art. But for many watching, it felt more like a warning. The designer was Mowalola Ogunlesi, a celebrated name in avant-garde fashion. But her 2024 show sparked backlash for one striking detail. Nearly every model wore fake black eyes, split lips, or bruises painted onto their skin, including Irina Shayk, one of the most famous faces in the industry. It wasn't explained. No context was given. The theme was left ambiguous, but the message hit a nerve. Was this meant to shock? To provoke? Or worse, to aestheticize abuse? Critics were divided. Some called it brave. Others called it dangerous. Survivors of domestic violence spoke out online, saying the imagery felt exploitative. And while the designer later said it was a commentary on inner turmoil, the damage had already been done. Because in an industry obsessed with pushing boundaries, shock value often overrides sensitivity. And the people depicted in these visions are rarely asked how it makes them feel. Fashion Week celebrates the avant-garde. But when bruises become accessories and trash bags are branded couture, it's fair to ask, at what point does art become abuse?
The last delicious meal, I can't even remember the last time I ate a meal.
For weeks, these young women, and increasingly young men, work back-to-back shows with little sleep, minimal food, and mounting pressure.
I understand why Britney Spears had a meltdown and shaved her head, and it's like you get sick of people touching you.
Their bodies become billboards. Their identities are erased for the brand. And when it's over, many turn to substances just to cope, to stay awake, to stay thin, to stay functional, and no one stops it because the job demands it. When a model collapses, it's rarely called what it is. But talk to the models who've come out the other side, and you'll hear the truth. Addiction, eating disorders, PTSD, and anxiety so severe they couldn't leave their apartment for weeks. But once they're well, the cycle begins again. Because in fashion, silence isn't just golden, it's required. And speaking out about what really happens after the runway, that's how you get blacklisted. Some industry heavyweight designers, including Donna Karan, Kunza Schooler, The Row, Victoria Beckham, and Calvin Klein, have been called out by models and fashion critics for featuring a cast of all white models, despite the show taking place in one of the most diverse cities in the world, New York. It isn't just about one show, it's about a pattern. For years, black models have been erased from fashion's biggest stages. Or worse, only included when their presence suits a brand's image of diversity. One model, London Myers, filmed herself backstage at Paris Fashion Week, where hairstylists ignored her completely, focusing only on the white models. In 2013, model activist Bethan Hardison released an open letter accusing some of fashion's most powerful brands, including Calvin Klein, Donna Karan, and Marc Jacobs, of racist acts. And yet the problem persists. Even when black models are hired, they're often subjected to cultural insensitivity.
But I had an experience in Milan. I went through hell, basically. They glued in a whole head of extensions, they ripped them out, they blow dried my hair, they straightened it, they put hairspray, and then literally he was just about to put like a really water-based gel on my hair, and I just turned around and I said, if you put this in my hair, it's gonna make my hair go frizzy. And he literally just started going off, like calling me like the B word, telling me, who do I think I am? Who do I think I'm talking to? He can end my career in 2 minutes.
One New York show was slammed for putting cornrows and do-rags on white models, stripping cultural identity for aesthetic appeal. When black models began to speak out, some were quietly dropped from agencies. Others were told they were being too political. But the movement grew louder. Boycotts followed. Hashtags spread. And slowly the conversation around race and fashion shifted. Not just about visibility, but about power, ownership, and respect. Because diversity isn't just about who walks the runway. It's about who's allowed to walk with dignity.
Things as simple as having a
the right hairdresser, the right makeup artist, because it does hurt your self-esteem if you're not looked after the way the other models are looked after.
Protesters have crashed runways across the world, from Paris to Milan to London. The message? Fashion isn't just surface-level beauty, it's blood-stained profit. PETA's main target has long been the fur industry. Despite mounting evidence of animal cruelty, many top designers continued to showcase real fur. For activists, Fashion Week was the ultimate stage for confrontation. But it hasn't always gone as planned. In 2018, a protester was violently dragged off the catwalk by security during a coach show. In 2020, London police detained activists outside Victoria Beckham's event. And in 2023, Stella McCartney, long known for her cruelty-free designs, was caught in a PR storm when fake leather was sourced from unsustainable plastics. These protests have sparked conversation, outrage, and sometimes change. Major brands like Gucci and Prada eventually went fur-free, but others simply swapped fur for exotic leathers or went quiet until the heat died down. The fashion world loves to posture as progressive. It's embraced climate slogans, painted runways green, even used recycled materials for PR. But for many activists, it's all just optics. And real change? That takes more than a photo shoot. She limped onto the runway, her face flawless, her posture poised. What the audience didn't see was the searing pain in every step. But canceling? That wasn't an option. This isn't a rare incident. In an industry obsessed with perfection, even serious injury can't interrupt the performance. Models have walked with sprained ankles, fevers, even after collapsing moments before. The show must go on, even when it hurts. There are no sick days in fashion, no injury protocol, no union to protect workers under pressure. In most jobs, showing up with a broken foot would earn sympathy or at least a break. In fashion, it gets you a magazine cover. She was 22, 6 feet tall, and weighed less than 100 pounds. Her heart stopped just moments after walking the runway, and she subsequently collapsed unconscious. No one noticed until it was too late. Her name was Luisel Ramos, and she didn't just die in fashion. She died for it. Because Fashion Week doesn't just celebrate beauty, it demands sacrifice. And sometimes it demands lives. Luisel was one of Uruguay's rising stars. She hadn't eaten properly in weeks. Lettuce leaves and diet soda, that was her fuel. That was the price of staying thin enough to work. The autopsy confirmed what everyone silently suspected: severe malnutrition. Her body had been pushed past the point of survival. 2 months later, her younger sister Eliana, also a model, died the same way. 2 sisters, 2 funerals, but behind the scenes, nothing really changed. Because in fashion, tragedy is only tragic when it's caught on camera. And when the cameras stop, so does the outrage. Fashion Week is a spectacle, but behind the flashing lights and designer looks, there's a darker truth. From models collapsing backstage to children walking runways alone, to abuse being dressed up as art, Fashion Week isn't just a show. It's a system, and it's long overdue for change. But this story isn't over. We're releasing part 2 next week, diving even deeper into the side of Fashion Week most people never get to see, and how it really affects the people inside it. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it. And in the comments, we want to hear from you. What's one word you'd use to describe the reality of Fashion Week? Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week for part 2.